Okay, you're listening to Bears Beyond the Gate, a Bristol Bears podcast made by fans for fans. Well, everyone, as we alluded to in our main pod on Sunday, we're going to give you all a bonus Edu-Pod this week. Specifically, a deeper dive into our Champions Cup fixture against Po with the help of the Rosbifs Rugby pod. And there's more. We also took some time out this week to speak to Mark and Cameron from the Bears Supporters Advisory Committee, who talked us through what they've been up to this season. More of that later, but to start with, I'd like to welcome Rob Graham from Rosbifs Rugby to educate you all with all things Po. Rob, it's great to have you on, and thanks for giving up your time to speak to us.
Thanks very much for having me. I think this is technically my first guest appearance on a podcast other than my own. So well, yeah.
Rob, can you just tell us what you're wearing for our listeners? Can you describe what you're wearing tonight?
I am wearing my Section Paloise, my Po Christmas jumper. Now, the key that we've decided is for a good piece of rugby stash is for those in the know to know that it's a good piece of that it's rugby, but for those that have no idea about rugby at all to not know it's rugby. So to all intents and purposes, this is just a green and white, the Vere Blanc of the Section Paloise colours with section emblazoned across the chest, and no reference to Po, no reference to Paloise, no reference to rugby. And I do have a Stade Toulousain one, and the Toulouse one does have the crest, and it has a few rugby balls on it. So that's but yeah. So, and obviously I am a Po fan, so this is my favourite of the. I think I've got 3 French rugby Christmas jumpers.
So Rob, did you? I take it you got that around the festive period in the Po club shop, I would hope, did you?
I actually, confession, Miles, I actually ordered it online.
No.
Because I was almost tempted to book a trip last year to purely to go and get it, and I thought, no, there's too much stuff that I want from that shop.
Fair enough.
That I'm just going to order it online. I managed to find a loophole somehow to get around the shipping, but the majority of them, the buy-on one I picked up in April in like 25-degree heat. I picked up a kind of bargain bin Christmas jumper from the buy-on boutique in April. So yeah, most of them are. It's actually the only online purchase I've done.
That's fine. I mean, Lee loves honesty. He always tells us that on our podcast, doesn't he? So I'm sure he appreciates that.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure some of our listeners would like to know how long it took for it to arrive, because one of our listeners was waiting for his away shirt this season. No, his home shirt from Bristol for about 6 weeks. So we're always quite interested to know what the merchandising kind of supply chain is like in other clubs.
I think it was better than 6 weeks. Brilliant. I don't think it was actually that long.
Oh, great!
You're already up. Well, look, Rob, thanks very much for dressing up for us. We really appreciate it. But as some of the listeners know, I'm a geography teacher, so I thought it would be very nice for you to perhaps start by telling us a little bit about where Po actually is in France, and then maybe a little bit background to the club and why it's actually called Section Paloise and not Po. So off you go.
Well, I'm going to start there. Section Paloise, I genuinely don't know. Paloise is what you are called if you are from Po. So you'll notice that a lot of the clubs have a kind of like Stade Rochelet or Stade Toulousain or Aveyron Bayonnais. They're kind of the town, as it were. And Section is just a multi-sports club, or was a multi-sports club. It kind of founded in 1902. It's one of the oldest in France. But it's the only one that's called Section. I think it's the only one in France called Section. So I don't know where the origin of that is, but Paloise is of Po, from Po. And Po itself is kind of, I guess, a lot of people, or many people, will know it as the capital of the Tour, because there's basically always a Tour de France leg starting or finishing, or both, in Po, because it's on the doorstep to the Pyrenees, which is when and if you go to Po, you don't quite get it on TV, and it looks quite rubbish on TV. But one end of the stadium there's no stand, and you actually have a view out over the kind of snow-capped peaks of the Pyrenees from all around the stadium. It's quite impressive.
Oh, wow.
So it's big with cyclists, and kind of a bit of a cycling mecca in that area of the Pyrenees. It is now you're testing me. It is in Department 64, which is Pyrenees Atlantique. So technically in the same department as kind of the same region, county, whatever you want to call it, as Biarritz and Bayonne. And probably currently when they do Derby Day, Pau play Bayonne, because even though Biarritz is kind of geographically very close to Bayonne, and people from Bayonne are very adamant that their derby is Biarritz, but it's kind of they're right down the bottom of that southwest, and obviously being near the Pyrenees, it's quite near Spain. It is, however, not in the Basque Country. It is in the kind of historical Béarn region, which you may see, you'll see them on Sunday when you guys go, or you'll see them on TV. It's the yellow flag with the 2 red bulls is the Béarn flag, and that's Béarnais sauce is from the Béarn region, but it's kind of very proud agricultural region, mountainous region, obviously. The kind of logo of Pau is one of the kind of iconic mountains or peaks within the Pyrenees. I can never remember which one it is because there's millions of them.
I was just about to give you an A star there, but you've
yeah.
But it's I think the kind of identity of with the Béarn region is quite a big thing for Pau, and there's a lot of interesting kind of links to the local area. The green and white, for example, is the colours are to mirror the Pyrenees of the kind of fertile lands and the snow. So.
Just one supplementary question from me, and I forgot to ask it first. Actually, is like Rosbifs Rugby Pod. I mean, obviously, those people that speak a bit of French know it. It suggests that it's an English or it's 2 English guys that know a bit about French rugby. So, I mean, how did that come about? Because you certainly don't sound very French.
I'm not French, and in true Rosbif style, neither of us speak particularly good French.
Wow.
I kind of put as a teacher, I think, Pete, I think we need this in the curriculum or on CVs. My French is probably above basic, but at a level that I would determine good enough to know when Google Translate is wrong. And that is I think that should be an official category on people's CVs, but that's kind of the extent of it. To be honest, it was weekends like this that we got into it. Rich and I, my fellow Rosbif, we went to France for a couple of Champions Cup games, and then we did another 2 kind of back to back, because the train travel in France is cheap and it's good, and it's quite easy to traverse and a lot of the clubs are kind of within an hour or short train journey from each other. So we kind of started with Champions Cup, and then I was about to say, give the age away, for my 30th, I decided that I wanted to do a back-to-back Pro Day 2 and Top 14. And that was actually, back then, Bayonne were in Pro Day 2. So we did Bayonne on the Friday night and Pau on the Saturday. And I woke up eventually on my 30th birthday in Pau. And that was kind of where I kind of got my affiliation to Pau from. But yeah, generally in terms of the podcast, we kind of loved it. And it was brilliant, like going to these new towns that we knew nothing about, and the culture there and all the incredible food at some of these places it puts English sports stadia to shame with some of the culinary offerings. And so I think we're now, between Rich and I think we're up to 32 different grounds or watched rugby at 32 different grounds. So I think a lot of them are, I mean, Stade de France is technically a football stadium, so a few of them are, especially the World Cup venues, were football stadiums. But yeah, and then after the World Cup, I guess there was the kind of outflow of British talent to France, and we found that no one was talking about it, and we were like, well, I feel like someone needs to loosely know what they're on about, and I'm not sure we are that, but yeah, we kind of highlight the trips because that's how we fell in love with it, and that's how a lot of people fall in love with it, especially to kind of non-French speakers, to kind of go and travel to France, because it is a brilliant country, and I'm now a fully fledged Francophile as much as I am a Rosbif, their pejorative term for the English or British.
I can ask a quick question. Obviously, you talk about signing a few Brits over the year. I mean, Poe are obviously doing exceptionally well this season, but I guess historically they haven't been top of their game, haven't they? But they were signing. Well, they obviously got a fantastic person in Joe Simmons who's playing for them.
I'm going to have to correct you there,
Julian
Miles. I'm going to have to correct you there. Rich is an Exeter fan, and he likes to make sure that he is given his full title of Joe Simmons MBE. Sorry,
MBE.
So I just had to make that certain.
I know you obviously got Montorio as well. I mean, is it a sort of club that has generally attracted high class talent from abroad, Poe?
Yes and no. So you're right, and they have been in the lower reaches of the top 14 for a while. They got promotion back in 2016, I think, and this is the first time they've been in the Champions Cup since 2001. And or kind of what was the Heineken Cup, and obviously it's a bit easier to get into now as well. And generally, like my time being a Poe supporter has been more looking downwards than upwards, whereas kind of the back end of last season kind of turned the corner and got into the Champions Cup, and it's very much now a publicly stated aim to get into the top six, the playoffs this season. But there has been a shift. So historically there were overseas signings. They've had a few. They've kind of got quite a connection with some iconic All Blacks. So Conrad Smith was there for a while. They signed. Well, Luke Whitelock is still on the books. He's had a horrible time with injuries, but Sam Whitelock was signed after the World Cup and retired after a season. But there's a few kind of iconic players from generally New Zealand who have settled down there and kind of made links with Poe. But this season there was a bit of a change in the transfer policy in signing Julio Montoya, Facundo Issa, who you'll be familiar with his time from Toulon and Argentina. They were the kind of two big ones, but also a guy called Thomas Leclerc, who played for France in the autumn, basically off the back of his return to form from Poe. But big things were a young tight head or youngish tight head. A lot of things were expected of him a couple of years ago, and he's kind of lost his way a bit at Racing. But it was the first kind of time in a while that they'd signed a number of players, and you thought, oh, that's a really good signing. That's exactly what they need. And I'd say certainly at the moment, it's not necessarily a policy of we want to sign big overseas players in the same way that Toulon would or Racing 92 have historically. Because the focus at the moment is very much bringing through players from the academy. So the head coach, Sebastian Picarones, was head coach of France under-20s about 3-4 years ago, back when France under-20s were the all-conquering force of under-20s rugby. He was the man in charge, and he was kind of brought in with the specific goal to bring through a lot of talent and bring through this kind of crop of young players. And it just seems at the moment like a never-ending production line of exciting backs. There are so many, and they've got a few injuries, and there are just more kind of appearing from the woodwork. And Picarones is clearly doing a very good job, because while they have signed some big name players, they've not had them for large chunks this season, and they are still second in the league, and they've picked up wins again away at Bordeaux and at home to Toulouse and at home to La Rochelle, with not all of those kind of big name players playing, all those international players playing. So yeah, that's the kind of focus for them these days. And they certainly, the international players they signed over the summer is much more of a sprinkling or a cherry on the cake type thing to kind of take them to the next level.
Lee, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say, Rob, I mean, we're big fans, the three of us, big fans of your podcast.
Thank you very much.
You cover all bases, which is, it's not easy to do in the hour, as we've found out talking about it just Bears. But specifically, but we know that it wasn't the strongest Poe team against Northampton Saints, and we know there was a couple of issues, like Montoya got injured, was it, in the warm-up? But specifically with the game in mind on the weekend, what are we likely to see in BS3?
It's a brave man that predicts anything about French rugby, or a foolish man, which I think is probably the category Rich and I fall under. Do you know what? We said this on our pod, that it's been a weird round last weekend, because we were pleasantly surprised by some of the teams that were selected. So Castres, Toulon, Clermont, all sent pretty strong sides away. And Pau and Bayonne, who probably had their most winnable games at home and they are the two teams or two of the teams with unbeaten records at home in the top 14, so very proud records, picked the weakest sides of all the top 14 sides in the Champions Cup. With Pau, it was partly due to injuries and necessity because of that, partly due to choice. So it was an interesting selection looking at the Pau side, in that anyone that is French international or has trained with France generally was not selected. And they tried to have Montoya, they tried to have Jack Maddox, who were Australian international. And I think that is because of the GIF rule or the GIF rule in France. So you have the kind of number, you have to have an average of 16 players per match day squad who are GIF. That doesn't necessarily mean French. So it just means that they have to have been kind of formed in France and through a French academy. So someone like Becca Gorgadze, who is Georgia captain, he is GIF qualified because he's kind of come through in France, and he was rested. So all of the guys, it was quite an interesting, the only big names that were initially selected were international players that were available, whereas, or kind of non-GIFs that were available, whereas, Atisogbe and Emilian Garton are injured. Joe Simmons is actually injured as well. Joe Simmons, MBE. But kind of the other guys that were involved with the France squad or certainly played for France in the autumn internationals, like Hugo Orodou, Thomas Leclerc, Jimmy Maximan, I think actually might have been injured, but he trained with France over the autumn. Those were all the guys that were rested. And I would be very surprised if there is a departure from that policy this weekend. I think the team they put out on Sunday against Northampton, when I first saw it, I thought was all right. A lot of those guys are now second choice, but in the past have been first choice and are also the same guys that have put in some very, very good performances in the top 14 this season. The big one, and thinking ahead to Bristol, and I was slightly worried when you guys said that Ellis Genge was probably going to start, is post scrum. This year has actually been pretty good. It was terrible on Sunday, but over the last couple of seasons has been a really, really blindingly obvious Achilles heel. And when you start taking away some tight five forwards who are kind of good quality international players, that starts to kind of bear its head. I think I've not really answered your question there, Lee. But I don't think we'll see. I'd be amazed if we see. I mean, there's not that like
a vastly different squad. Is what you're saying. I mean, you said. I mean, I listened to your podcast. You said there were like 7 scrum penalties and what 19 in total given away. That's a tremendous amount. I mean, you're right, and you're right. Ellis Genge, he'll be gunning for that. You know, he loves a good scrum pen, doesn't he? So I hope it is a good game. I really do, and I hope that Pau send a decent squad. But I guess historically, British fans would always say the French don't particularly travel well, do they? And the time is rubbish. 7:30 on a Sunday evening. We're not convinced as 5:30. So we're not convinced as fans that the stadiums are going to be that full, even with season ticket holders. So it must be even worse for Pau to come over and play at that time. Yeah, for sure.
On a positive note, though, Rob, it sounds to me like maybe Pau are focusing more on top 14 and not the Champions Cup. Would that be a fair assessment for this season?
Yeah, and we, even before I'd seen the team selection for last weekend, I could have predicted that would be the case, because it's such a publicly stated ambition of them to kind of get to the playoffs for the first time in a long, long time. And you generally see it with the smaller budget squads from France. So we've seen it in the past with the likes of Cast, who actually have been a bit better in Europe over the last couple of year or bit. But it's generally the bigger budget sides like Toulon, Toulouse, Bordeaux that have put out stronger squads. But I kind of going back to I can't, which one of you asked it, but I kind of should reiterate that like these guys have put in a really good shift this season. So while it's weaker and lacks a bit of stardust, there is an element of the way they play is very, very well set out, and they are very well coached. They are renowned as playing some very exciting attacking rugby, which you'd possibly expect when they've put sides out with an average backline of 21 years old or something like that. And obviously Dan Robson helps a bit with that with his age. But the majority of their outside backs are in their early 20s. And they're playing some thrilling stuff. It kind of cost them the losing bonus point at the end against Northampton, where Gregoire Afoy, who scored 2 brilliant tries, tried to run it out from behind his own try line and got caught. So
sounds familiar.
it should be. I had a little glance at the weather. Actually, it's not fantastic on Sunday, but the way that Bristol play and certainly the way Poe play, it should be a thriller. No matter who Poe turn up, who turns up. Poe.
One thing Ashton Gate has got going for it is it's got a pretty good surface, and that was actually just something we found at Scarlets may have been one of the reasons it wasn't such a good game, because it was quite a heavy ground. So I mean, if you've got two teams that are going to come and play rugby, I mean, we've experienced that at the Bears. It's always a bit of a roller coaster. Although I've got to say, this season we feel like they've been a little bit more pragmatic, and obviously if you play a high tempo, high precision game, it's all great until it doesn't work, and you get and actually Bristol often get put under pressure by kind of heavy defences to force mistakes. But it kind of sounds, it might be quite refreshing to actually play a team that is a bit like us, and see how we kind of cope with it as well. And I'm sure Pat and his video analysts are well on top of your game plan.
You should get plenty of ball. Poe have been particularly good recently at because of the way they play at coughing up ball, whether it's knock-ons or they've just been a bit inaccurate at breakdown.
It could be a cough-a-thon, to be honest, because Bristol are quite good at coughing it up as well. Just one other question I was going to ask you, really, and it's always a pretty a rubbish question when you get guests on. We're going to ask it anyway. So what do you think is going to be? What's the result going to be? And do you have any sort of idea of a score prediction, which is usually a meaningless question, but I'm going to ask it to you anyway.
I would caveat this by saying that Rich and I do predictions for all the results of top 14 and Pro League every week, and I think we get it 100% right in one of the leagues about twice a season. So it's yeah, like I said, it's a fool that predicts anything in French rugby. I'm not holding out too much hope for Poe. I was going to try and come down, but the British rail prices are considerably more expensive than French rail prices. If we were in, the equivalent journey in France would probably be about half the price, and it'd be slightly less prohibitive to get back to London at God knows what time on a Sunday evening. But yeah, even like, I think the fact that if I thought that Poe were coming with a full noise team, I perhaps could be tempted. I think they should be competitive. It shouldn't be a full blowout. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a kind of 15-point plus margin though. They did pretty well to stay in the fight for so long against Northampton. Hopefully the scrum will be better. It can't be much worse, but I genuinely have no idea what team is going to be put out. If they kind of pick the likes of Leclerc and Hugo Oredu, then it will be very competitive, because that will fix the scrum, and Hugo Oredu is currently the best line-out forward in the top 14. So that would make a huge difference. The back line will play a lot, whoever it is. But I'm not. I think Bristol have probably gotten too much in terms of they'll have too much star quality in that starting lineup for Poe to really push them that hard. Well,
I mean, we've only got a couple of minutes left, actually, boys. On the We Are Cheapskates, we've only got a free Zoom call here. So, lads, I don't know if you've got one last very quick question for Rob before we say goodbye. I'm exhausted. Mine, Lee, you've got one. Let's finish off with one from you then.
It's just a really quick one, actually, Rob. I just want to say, because we listened to your pod, and we heard that you I think you did have a cliche bout at some stage. Or
we had a bingo during the Six Nations. Oh, we might have had a cliche bout, yeah. But we definitely did Six Nations bingo for all the cliches as well.
It just made me laugh because we had a cliche bell as well at one stage, didn't we, fellas? Until the listeners told us to bin it, basically.
Retire it.
It
Yeah.
was going off all the time. That was the trouble.
Yeah, I imagine there's a few lazy assumptions made about Bristol. That in the same way that people think they know what they're talking about.
Well, I think it's more the case that we have a fairly limited vocabulary and use the same adjectives all the time, which has been picked up on by our kind of regular listeners. We can't really hide anywhere. So, it's good to hear that other pods revel in the use of cliches as well. Well, look, Rob, we really, really appreciate your time. You definitely have educated us, and I'm sure that a lot of our listeners will be who will be at the game as well. Will go to the game with a bit of an intellectual spring in their step now that they know what the opposition are like. So we really appreciate it, and obviously we've got Bordeaux in January, so maybe we could get back in touch with you. When we're closer to the time when we play Bordeaux, and there may be a few permutations that might be interesting to talk about then.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the top 14 Bordeaux is very different to the one that we saw, or this season's been very different to the one we saw on Saturday, and they were magnificent. But there's always that kind of trade off between which team you get with the top 14 sides. Do you get the one that turns up in Europe, or do you get the one that turns up in the top 14? Always another layer to it.
And if by some sort of quirk of fate, we actually do manage to qualify for the knockout rounds for the first time in 3 years, it would be fantastic if it was a French team. And we'd obviously then have to get in touch with you for not just rugby advice, but also travel advice, culinary advice, but clearly not any language advice. So
you can definitely. The thing about the last 16 is because you kind of got a bit of a lead up time, you can identify the Pro de Deux or National games that are happening on the Friday night and double up and get a lot of bang for your buck by taking in a few games in a short space of time. That's the best way to do it.
Well, look, Rob, I really appreciate that, and all those people out there, I'd recommend having a listen to the Rosbifs Rugby pod this week because they've got a preview of the game, and actually your partner in crime was on BBC Bristol the Scrum tonight, and I've got to say, he didn't say much about the Bears Po game, so I think we've definitely complimented our friends at Radio Bristol. But anyway,
he's a Cast fan. He hates talking about Po.
He did skirt over it. I mean, they did skirt over there, so I thought it's a perfect opportunity to have a bit more of a deep dive from you. So as I say, it's really appreciate that, and enjoy your Francophile rugby.
Thanks very much, guys. Enjoy Sunday evening. I hope it's an absolute cracker. Thanks very much for having me on.
Really appreciate it.
Okay, we're here with Mark and Cameron from the Bears Supporters Advisory Committee, and they contacted us because they wanted to have an opportunity to sort of talk about what they're doing and how you can get in touch with them and things like that. So we're really, really pleased to have them. So I'll start with you, Mark. Do you want to give us a little bit of an overview of the committee and what your role is and so forth?
Yeah, so sure. So my name's Mark. I'm the chairman of the Bears Committee for this season. What the committee is brought in to do is to be the conduit between the fans and Bristol Bears higher-ups. There's 7 of us on the committee with a big demographic of different people on the committee. We've all gelled very well. Tom Tainton, he chairs the meeting. We have one every quarter and go from there.
And Cameron, how did you get involved with it?
Well, I mean, it was a bit of a weird one, really. It was like I saw there was a Facebook post out by the club saying calling for fans to apply for the sports committee. I was like, all right, that'll be nice and interesting. Okay, get stuck in with that. Put in a little application, wrote up a little bit about what I wanted to get from it. Heard nothing for months, and then it was like August, September time, right, I think it was. And this like email pops up. It's like, oh, we'd like to have you along. I was like, happy days.
Brilliant.
Go from there.
So it's like applying for a job then?
Yeah, pretty much was.
Yeah. I mean, annoyingly, I'm still waiting for my reply. But anyway, so it's good to have you boys here. So Mark, I mean, you kick off. I mean, what specifically have you talked about so far this season, and maybe run through some of the results you've already had?
So we've had so at the start of the season, I don't know if you remember the Leicester game. So they came out with the smoke machine, and they had the smoke machine in the Dolman stand as well. So we had quite a lot of responses to say that was pretty poorly designed, and there was a lot of smoke for like 5 minutes in the Dolman stand. So the club took that on board and said, yeah, we will stop that from going forward. And then also when AJ done his career season-ending injury, it was like they went straight to the cat. Like
it was a guitar. No, it was air guitar.
It was air guitar.
This was mentioned on our pod as well. Yeah,
and we was like, that was quite a lot of responses as well through more social media than the email box we got. So then we took it back to Tom. He took it on board, and going from there. And there's like suggestions at the moment from the Dolman stand, so you can't see a shot clock.
No.
So we've gone back to Tom to see during the Prem games, is there a way the club can facilitate that for fans in the Dolman stand? So that's things like that.
The Dolman stand is the best stand, isn't it? Obviously.
Don't know about that.
Well, yeah. I mean, also it's not just the shot clock you can't see; it's when they have fireworks off the roof as well. You can't see it at the Dolman stand. But yeah, I mean, I know you have. I have seen you have put a summary of some of the results out on various sort of forums, haven't you? On the Bristol Rugby.net forum, Facebook group. So some more detail on that is out there at the moment that people can go and find.
Yeah.
How many? So Cameron, how many meetings do they have a year?
We try and meet at least quarterly. So as that was
for Mars's benefit, can you explain what quarterly is?
4 times a year typically. Our next one is in February 4th. Yeah.
So for that meeting, just out of interest, who sets the agenda for that? Do you set it, or do the club?
It's a bit of a kind of a two-way conversation with ourselves and Tom Tainton in advance. Whether that's a collation of things that we've put to him via email over sort of that time period, or stuff that he's picked up through kind of, because they also monitor kind of the fan forums and they do read them. So it's kind of a Tom will propose an agenda, we'll add and change what we think needs to go in there.
Have you got anything particularly, Mark, that's on your case? Go for it.
So the women's game, I really wanted to send out there today. The club are very aware through the social media channels that there's quite a few fans who go to the women's and men's, and there's like a conflict between the games. Yeah. So we spoke to Daisy and Tom, and they're really what am I trying to look? Frustrated by this, but they were saying it was to do with the TV schedule, and they're looking into it to talk to the broadcasters and see what can happen. But at the moment, they're tied by what the TV's saying.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was one of the things we were going to talk about on the pod tonight. So that's great.
So that's one, and then the season tickets, we're coming into the next. So if anyone's got any ideas what they think they would like in their season tickets, they're looking into what to do benefit-wise and stuff like that. So if anyone's got any good ideas, send it through to our email address.
Well, that's sort of moves me on. I was going to say is it sounds like obviously you want ideas or suggestions, and that's kind of pure democracy, isn't it? And that's what we want. So I was going to say to you, how do people get in touch with you with their ideas or their queries or their comments?
Yeah, so we got an email address called the Supporters Advisory.
So,
go on, Cameron.
Go on, Cameron.
I've got it up. It's supporteradvisory@bristolbearsrugby.com.
Okay.
So any kind of fan feedback, if you want to ask us a question, get us to race them with the club,
or do it through social media channels if people feel more comfortable doing it that way. So we'll always pick up and take it to Tom.
I think there's a space on the official website as well.
I'm not sure.
I'm sure I've seen it, but anyway, I'm sure if you just Googled it as well, people will find it. So you're very clear about that. You want as much information as you can, but so that you can sort of collate it, take it to the club, and so on.
Because it was like sorry to interrupt you there. It was like the Prava band. I don't know if you guys.
I loved it.
Lansdowne.
Loved it.
But the Dolman stands, fans didn't get that. No. So it was just like, that made me get another pint and watch the band, because I was like, well, this is different. Didn't expect it. It was great. And but it wasn't one on the Dolman side. So I said it'd be great if they had both.
Yeah.
And then also the other thing Tom was saying that they really want to push this season is fans to do the Bears run. So welcoming the players. 85 minutes before kickoff. They're really trying to. All the players are coming in by coach, by Ashton Road. As many fans can get around would be amazing.
Because I went to the first one actually, the Tigers one, and the band was there as well, and it was well supported, that Bears run then, and it was brilliant. It was carnival atmosphere. It was really, really good. So
it's also quite warm, isn't it, and sunny.
It was nice and sunny.
I guess depending on the time of the match, you might get more fans down than others. But I think that's a great run. I suspect from previous seasons there's maybe some negativity about player engagement. I'm guessing maybe that's why this has come about. I mean, it worked brilliantly. Big day out in Cardiff. So I think it's really positive.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that actually, because we went to Chiefs and they had 2 bands. So obviously then one band would finish, then the other would start, and it was actually really good, wasn't it, Miles? Yeah. And we were just like you say, it's keeping everyone at HQ, which is what we all want, isn't it? We want to, especially after a win.
Definitely.
Even in a defeat, you can commiserate. So you're still spending your money there at the ground, which is what we all want, really. It's great.
So I don't know. Is there anything else you want to add? It's your chance to put it on the recorder, and we'll stick it on the pod.
One thing that's worth highlighting is obviously the exhibition game. We spoke about that kind of at length in our last meeting with Tom and a few other people from the club, and it's sort of they're very much on the same page as a lot of us fans, that it's kind of lost that the initial allure of the pizzazz. That we had first up with that South Africa game where we had a huge sellout crowd, and it's sort of fallen down year on year since then. So there's a few ideas floating about us to kind of what to do with that. One thing that we propose is sort of doing it biannually, so having one every other year. You might free up a bit of cash to attract a bigger side. Maybe All Blacks XV.
That's what we all want.
That's what we all want. That's what the fans want. And it just kind of keeps it fresh rather than having that kind of almost like a nothing game that not many fans particularly want to go to, let alone season ticket holders may not want to go, let alone people just paying to go in general.
No, I think that's a really good one. Well, we're kind of we do our little thing, a bit similar to you as well, but we try and sort of mention stuff that people say to us as well. But it's nice to know for everyone that there is a kind of formalised channel, because and it's good. I guess it is good for people to know that they do genuinely. You go and present this information, and Tom and other members of their kind of management do actually, have that and have to respond to it.
I will say, after the 2 meetings I've had with Tom, you can tell he cares. He cares about what we think. He does take suggestions away if they can't implement them. He's very much X, Y, and Z. Well, we can't do this. So he's very forthcoming in terms of I want what the fans want, but
he's got to kind of put it all into the jigsaw pieces and puzzles all together, hasn't he?
But I guess the important thing is that it's for everyone out there. It's like if you do have something to say, you know that it will get there, and know that it will be listened to. So I think that's a really, really important message. Probably a good way to knock it on the head and finish it. Fantastic. So appreciate you boys coming down.
Yeah, always. Thanks for having us.
We'll get emailing, boys, shall we?
We should say, actually, Cameron's looking very fresh. He was out at the Scarlets game with us yesterday.
The wee hours of the
He's
morning,
looking far too fresh, this young lad today, isn't he?
He's a young pup.
I was going to say.
Little whippersnapper compared to the old timers.
And I did see him drinking a pint of water in between all his other points as well, and pouring a bit of his beer in the.
We'll talk about what Miles is drinking when we start our pod.
Anyway, right, that's brilliant, boys. Fantastic. Thanks for doing that.